Good afternoon, students. We are going to log into our hellosmart.com in order for us to participate in this lesson. So log into www.hellosmart.com so that you can actually take part in the assessment. Sign up as a guest and type in your class ID, which is written here in red. Then you add your name, so that we know who is responding to those assessments, who is participating in the assessments, and just show us how smart you are. Let's kick the ball rolling. Let me remind you that our CAPS lessons are being done on the smart way. And then these lessons are proudly sponsored by VT Africa Holdings. Let's wait while our lesson is opening. Just be patient, it's coming. Loading the pages. Right, this is our Geography Grade 12 lesson on rural and urban settlement. So we are going to go to the next page. And the next page is where the vocabulary is. These are the words that you need to be accustomed with. You just have to know these words by heart because they will help you explain anything that you are asked in the examination or you're asked by anyone about settlements. So we need to know these words. I want you to take note of these words. And if you think that you will ignore or you will forget, I mean, you have got a short memory, just take a screenshot of this and have it saved somewhere in your gadget. Let's move on. Now, table of contents is where we are having the concept of settlements. We are going to look at concepts such as site and situation, rural and urban settlements, settlement classification according to size, complexity, pattern, and function. Then after we have done all these, we are going to have a formative assessment. Therefore, the reason for logging into HelloSmart. This is where you are going to be taking part. You know that when you are learning, you need to also have an input so that you understand things better. Let's look at the next slide, just the topic that we're dealing with, study of settlements. Our slide number 6, study of settlements, concept of settlement. We have a definition here of settlement that we need to go through together. As written here, we do have the definition that goes as follows. Let us just highlight the most important words here. A grouping of people. So when you talk of settlements, we are talking of people and their activities. Then we look at the building structures as well. And we look at communication networks. And we look at function and you look at whether the function is single integrated system or a regular daily basis. So this is actually, you are looking at the complexity as well. So you look at a grouping of people. So grouping is also very important. We cannot refer to one person as a settlement or just one person living alone as a settlement. When we talk of a grouping of people, then we are now talking of settlements. And we don't do this in isolation of what they do, which are the activities. We don't do this in isolation of the building structures that they are utilizing there, be it for their habitation or for their economic activities. So we also look at all those aspects. This definition was given by a Greek architect and town planner in the 1960s. You might have your own definition that you found somewhere, which might be also be correct. But let's try to limit ourselves, students, to the definitions that are in the CAPES aligned books, because that will help us achieve the goals that we need, because we, at the end of the result of the day, we need to have positive results. We need to pass our exams. Then study of settlements, concept of settlement. This is the study of where people live and why they live there. Because people don't just stay in a place for no reason. People go and live in a place because of many reasons. It might be because it's near their workplace. It might be because it is near water. It might be because it is near other settlements, maybe of people that are related to them. As I mentioned earlier on, that people are social. People are social beings and they need to be close to other people. So a settlement is a group where people live together, settle and live together as a community. All settlements are unique. No settlement usually is similar to another. All settlements are unique. Settlements can be, let's take dispersed, nucleated. That is, we are looking at the arrangement of the homesteads, arrangement of houses, arrangement of buildings. So they may be dispersed or nucleated. And settlements can be rural or urban, temporary or permanent. So when we talk of dispersed or nucleated, we are talking of the order, the arrangement of the houses. Are they clustered together? Are they far apart together? So as you go to the rural areas, you find that the homesteads there, the settlements are dispersed. They are far from each other. As we looked at the hamlets and what we're going to look at those things. Then nucleated, they will be close together. That is in the urban areas. Then we are going to also just mention that they are either rural or urban, which is what is alluded to in those terms above. Then temporary or permanent. Some of the settlements, as you are all aware in the cities in South Africa, we know that there are what we call the informal settlements. Those are temporary in nature because they are built of temporary and cheap material. And permanent is where the city council is, or the government is demarcated that this is a settlement area and people are there on permanent basis. Then we do have definitions that we have put underneath here where we define settlement, which are places where people choose to live. Dispersed, building structures arranged far apart, isolated. Nucleated, rural and urban, you can read on your slide there. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Right, we are also going to look at the other aspects or characteristics, or let me say determinants of settlements. A settlement is determined by the site and the situation. So you have to be able to differentiate what is a site and what is a situation. So you differentiate site and situation. These words are usually interchangeably used, but they are different. The difference is actually spelled out here, where you see the definitions here. Site and situation refer to where the settlement is located, so that makes them similar. They refer to one thing, position. But when you look at the situation, you find that you are looking at mostly the position in relation to resources and other settlements. Whereas the site, when you talk of a site, we are talking of a geographical location. So this is it. To differentiate is to tell the differences, to tell the difference of one from another. Site, the actual land on which the place is found. Then when we talk of a situation, we're saying the location or place in relation to surrounding environment. What are these surrounding environments that we refer to? When we talk of surrounding environments, we are talking of a place like things like issues like, is the settlement next to a hospital? Is a settlement next to maybe an employment area, maybe a mining area, and so forth, that people are staying there because they are working in the mines? Is the settlement next to a river? We know that our ancestors used to live next to the rivers for provision of water because there was no tapped water there. So they would go and live next to the rivers, to the water source. Then resource. Now, when we talk of resource, we can talk of water, as I said. When we talk of water, we are saying it is a resource because people want to use it every day. So they would go and live next to that source. Another resource is maybe when people were living in the olden days, next to the mining areas, like if you talk of Palabora, you find that people were living next to the gold mines there. They were having out there ancient gold mines, Mapungubwe. People were mining gold there and trading in gold. So a resource is any physical or natural material from earth that people need and value. Right, let us look at site in depth. Site is actually the actual land which a settlement is located in terms of exact position. When we talk of exact position, we are talking of maybe the geographical location, the coordinates of the settlement. So this includes the physical characteristics of the environment. Is it mountainous? Is it a flat land, piece of land, a plateau, or what type of land is that? Then physical factors actually determine why a settlement is initially developed. You look at issues like gradient. You look at issues like aspect. You look at issues like water, soil. So let's go back to gradient. We are talking of the steepness of the area, how steep or flat the area is. So that determines why people build there. People cannot build on steepy slopes because that won't actually sustain their settlements. And we know that there is a lot of erosion that happens in those steepy areas, but some people can settle there and use other agricultural methods to stop the soil from being eroded. Then the aspect, which direction is the area looking. Some areas will be looking to the sun, where the sun rises, and some areas will be looking to the areas where there is no sun, that is in mountain ranges and mountainous areas. So this also has to be taken into cognizance. Some of the areas will be on the side where there is rain, and on the other side it's a leeward side where there won't be much rain and it won't sustain agriculture. Then availability of water is very important. Availability of water. So we look at gradient aspect. We also look at the types of soils. People will look at land that is productive. They will look at rich, loamy soils, clay soils that can support plant growth. So depending on the activity, some people won't even look at that because maybe what they are after is minerals underneath. So they will still settle there because they've got an activity that sustains their life apart from growing crops. Then let's look at another aspect, which is availability of land. Is there enough land to build? It's also very important. Transport, either to take your produce or your minerals to the market. You need transport, so is the place accessible? Building materials. Do we have the building materials that are needed there? We talk of maybe poles. Do you have the timber? Do you have maybe a cement factory nearby or cement shop nearby where you can actually buy the cement and make your bricks and so forth? So this is very important as well. Then fuel. We know that human beings eat cooked food, is it? So you need fuel to do that. You need fuel to run your cars. You need fuel for many other things, to warm your bodies and so forth during winter. And then let's look at situation. We're looking at situation in depth, which refers to the relationship, as we mentioned earlier on, of the settlement to surrounding areas. Is it near transport routes, road or railway, and the general physical environment? The situation of a settlement is its position when compared to the location of other settlements, resources, and communication networks. Students, I know this is easier to explain because you know that you can't live far away from other human beings. You need to be near other people because we are social creatures. Let's now look at situation again, and we have settlements chosen mainly because of their proximity. Let's look at this word I've bolded here intentionally so that you see that this word is important. What is proximity? When you look at proximity, we are looking at the nearness, or yes, you are talking of the nearness, the distance to a certain area that you want to get to. So the nearness, or that is the proximity to the resources. Are the resources far or near that place? So people would actually prefer to be near their resources. So several factors are considered when choosing the situation of a settlement. We have accessibility. Is the main road accessible? How near or far away are the other settlements? So we look at other settlements. Is there a water source? The water source and other resources. Then we look at the slope again. We're going back to the issue of a slope. Is the slope facing a favorable direction? You don't want to be in a place where when it's winter you are freezing to death. You might prefer building your settlement in an area where it's facing the sun, especially during the winter times. What are the temperatures like during the day and during the night? So the temperatures also, we know of deserts. Some deserts are very hot during the day, and during the night they are freezing cold. And you might not want to have your settlement in such places. That's why let's talk of a far off example now. In areas like the Sahara Desert, some of the homesteads are usually clustered around the oasis because there is water there, and also because the temperatures will be moderate, and they will be like the rest of the desert. They won't be that very harsh. So you find that people will actually prefer to live in that area where there is moderate temperature as opposed to the unforgiving weather. So is the area situated above the flood line or it's near water? City planners will usually look at the type of the place. Is it waterlogged? Is it near a river bank? That will best at times when it's the rainy season. We all know we have got an example of the Yukskei River, where people settled there, but they were not settled by the government. People settled there and built temporary structures. And when it's raining, we all see it on the news that they are always having problems there. There is always flooding, and some are even swept away by the waters. So this is very important. You need to look at the flood line. Is it near water in a dangerous way, or is it safe to build there? While on that, we also want to talk about another topic for another day, global warming, where you see that many of our cities along the coastal areas, the coastline, are actually in danger of being flooded by the oceans. So this is one thing that maybe the long-term plan that the city planners have to look at if the trend of global warming continues, because you might end up having some cities underwater. So proximity, as I explained earlier on about, I was saying nearness, it is actually the distance from one point to another. Accessible, how easy is it to get a settlement by different forms of transport? Very important aspects that we need to consider when. Now, study of settlements, rural and urban. So this is the two categories that we have in our settlements. We have got either rural settlements or we've got urban settlements. And when we talk about the rural settlements, we are saying rural settlements are focused around primary activities. There is not much industrial action there or industrial activity. There is not much manufacturing. There is not much sophisticated economic activities. So there are not many services available, and there is a small population. Then antagonize with the urban settlements. Put them side by side as we have done here. That's the antagonizing aspect that I'm talking about. Then you are going to have focus on urban settlements. The focus is around secondary, tertiary, and quaternary activities. There are a variety of services and activities available, and the population is large. So you need to take cognizance and keep this in your mind, especially what I'm highlighting now on the board, because these are the terms that you need to use when you are answering either in essay format or the easy question format. You need to know this so that you can answer appropriately when you are having an exam or just a simple test. So you need to know these definitions as we always, that's why we always put them here, down here, so that we always remind ourselves of the importance of these terms. So a primary activity, what are you doing there? You are making direct use of natural resources or materials. There is no manufacturing. For instance, you plant a mill, what you call it, maize. You plant maize or maize, and what are you doing there? You simply consume the maize as it is. That's a primary activity. You sell the maize as it is. That's very primary because you have not even ground the maize into mill. That's primary. Then secondary, you produce manufactured goods from raw materials received from primary activities. Now, when you take the maize, you ground it and you make porridge, maize meal porridge. That is now a secondary activity when you are now in the grinding industry. Then the tertiary activities is for providing specialized services. When you talk of specialized services, we are talking of like services like education. Maybe a community is now providing sophisticated education and so forth. Quaternary activity provides knowledge based on information services, your IT and everything. Then you are now in the quaternary. Right. Rural settlements are associated with the countryside. We talk of rural when the further we move from the cities in those isolated areas. That's what we call the rural settlements. And they are much smaller in size, usually in the form of isolated farms, hamlets, villages, or small towns. There is less infrastructure, the population is small. Rural settlements are unifunctional. When you say uni, we mean one. And when you say unifunctional, we mean it has got one function. So there is usually one primary economic activity that is dominant there, such as farming, fishing, forestry, hunting, and mining. There's the definition. Let's move ahead. Right, let's look at this hierarchy. The hierarchy of the settlements, rural and urban settlements. We've got the primary sector, which is the broader one, where there is only basic production, agriculture, forestry, mining, fishery. Then the secondary, followed by the secondary sector, which has got production of goods. So the higher we go, the more the sophistication. The lower we go, the lower the sophistication. So you move to the secondary sector, production of goods, industries, construction, craft, tertiary sector, services, trade, banks, transport, education, culture, health. Then we need to come and look at this graph here, a line graph that shows you the size of the settlements. So at the beginning here, we've got the smallest, the higher you go, the more bigger the settlement. So the first one here that we have is an isolated farmstead. It is the smallest, then an amalgamation of farmsteads into several homes becomes a hamlet, and then when hamlets combine and become bigger, they become a village. When villages are concentrated around maybe a store, a mine, and some basic activity that is there, usually a one activity, it becomes a small town. When there are more services that are there and the number of people is also increasing, it becomes a large town. The more sophisticated the large town becomes and having more activities, industrial activities and so forth, is called a city. More cities amalgamated together. Let me just bring the example home. Let's talk about Johannesburg. You talk of various outlying areas that are cities on their own. You talk of Sandton City. You talk of Midrand. You talk of Centurion. You talk of Benoni. All those are part of a greater whole, which is Johannesburg. So it is now known as a metropolis. A combination of many metropolis together will become a conurbation. And now when you have got many metropolis now and the city is very advanced, the population is numbering up to even 15 million and so forth, like Beijing, New York City and so forth, you find that it becomes a megalopolis. So this is the order of our settlements. Let's move ahead. Time is not our best ally. Study of settlements, urban settlements. They are associated with larger towns and built-up areas. They are larger in size, large town, city, metropolis, conurbation, megalopolis. A large infrastructure is available, complex roads, railway and air transport systems. The population is large and densely populated and economically active age group. Then as opposed to the rural, our rural settlements, our urban settlements, I mean, are multifunctional. And as opposed to the rural as well, they are secondary, tertiary, and quaternary economic activities, which are dominant, such as social, financial, medical, commercial, educational, and administrative activities. And this actually gives us a reason, the reason why we have migration. That's a topic for another day. People are attracted to these services, thereby the large populations that we have in the cities, in comparison with the less populations we have in the rural areas. I hope we are getting this clearly. Settlement classification, how are settlements classified? We have got basically 4 classification terms that we have here. They are classified by their size, complexity, pattern, and function. So we have size, complexity, pattern, and we have function. Then in the boxes underneath those classification codes, we do have the explanations. The size is the physical size of land or area. The population density is also put to the fore. And then when we talk of complexity, we are talking of the combination of services from simple isolated farm to complex infrastructure. So from simple to complex, that actually differentiates between rural and urban. Our rural areas are simple, they are isolated, and the complex is the cities or the urban areas are complex infrastructure. Then the pattern, that's where we talk about being displaced or nucleated. Our rural areas are displaced and our urban areas are nucleated. Then the function, services provided, we are talking of the complexity here, okay, it also refers to the complexity, and we may also say it refers to the diversity. How diverse is the function or the economic activities that are done in that settlement. So when you say it's unifunctional, it means it's less diverse. When it's multifunctional, it is more diverse. There are a lot of activities that are happening there. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, thank you. Right, the next slide, class, we talk of size. So the size is the one that forms the hierarchy that we saw on the other slide. We talk of the hierarchy pyramid. So the sizes are ordered from the smallest at the bottom to the largest at the top. Then let's move to this. This is the hierarchy pyramid about size. We have our farmstead at the bottom and our megapolis right at the apex, at the tip of our pyramid. So this is how you arrange your settlements according to size. Right, complexity. It depends on the size of the settlement. Each settlement consists of a combination of services and structures, whether it's primary, secondary, or tertiary. So when you look at complexity, we are talking of maybe the types of materials that are used to build, the types of even the arrangement of those, and so forth. Like when you talk of the rural areas, we're talking of the rondafels, which are less complex to build. Many of them are built of dagger and pole. Then you talk of the cities where you are having these high-rise buildings, which are built of concrete blocks, built of maybe granite stones and so forth, which are more complex, and even the order of in the cities, the streets and everything is complex. So this is the difference. Then the function, we mentioned that earlier on, the reason why a settlement exists. That's what is a function. Why are people there in the first place? Settlement classification pattern. This is the settlement classification. Basically, is the two terms there, displaced or nucleated. So you just need to maybe take a screenshot of this and keep it somewhere safe. It will help you. Settlement classification function. Function refers to the type and number of activities that take place within a settlement. We are still going to, but there are times when the rural settlements do not base on one settlement. They usually involve themselves in activities like game lodges, rural area, maybe tourism. There is some tourism that is done in the rural area itself. So that actually becomes a tertiary activity. And when it becomes a tertiary activity, it is given a name which is called ecotourism. So ecotourism, this is the economic activity that is usually centered around preservation or conservation of the environment. We talk of communities next to Kruger National Park and so forth also being involved in much of these activities to conserve the animal and the game life there. We need to have a couple of questions on what we have learned, class. Let's look at this game here. We're going to have a game and we participate in that game. So this is a lab activity. that we can do together, and we make sure that let's just remove some of these unintended marks that we have here quickly. Right, we have a game here which is a beehive game on the structure of the harmless class. So let's take, for instance, farmstead and put it at the highest. It's rejected, which means it was a wrong entry. Then we put a megalopolis here, and then we find that that is permitted. Farmstead is allowed, is accepted. Hamlet is refused. Where is it supposed to be? It's still refused. It's supposed to follow the farmstead and so forth. A very funny game. You do it in your time, and then you actually internalize and get to know the order of these settlements. Let's go to a formative, which is the one that we have to do together on that where you logged in. Okay, this is just a question here. You can write it on a piece of paper, the answer there. It says A is a place where a group of people settle and live together. Attempt that, and then we'll see who got it right. A is a place where a group of people live and together, resort, community, settlement, house. Okay, here is the time to show the answer. It's C, which is a settlement. Right, let's congratulate those who got it correct. Let's go to the next activity class. We are running out of time. So I hope you are all logged in and we're going to do this activity together. So remember, then there we are. So let's join in and do the assessment. Let's join in, class. I'm giving you a minute to complete that. Let's join in and participate. So we are ending the activity. We now look at the results of who has answered and who has not answered and how many you got. It's impressive. It was such a wonderful moment having you in this lesson, and I hope you got many of the concepts right, and it's going to help you in examination. Our next broadcast is going to be at 12 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. Thank you very much, and keep studying.